Welcome to Productions MJC. My name is Mark, and today we're going to be discussing something I ran across recently. That is a discussion on whether atheism is a belief or not. And yes, it is quite a hot and heavy discussion. Now, this is what I found. This is a Philadelphia paper, I believe. Atheists want their own church. Well, in discussing that, I brought it up to a group whether atheism was a belief. While discussing the new phenomenon of the atheist megachurches, the discussion group went nuts. Mostly atheists, they were offended by the atheism being called a belief system, well, and actually even being called a belief at all. Well, what if I told you being offended does not mean you're right? Just because you take the position of being offended doesn't mean your position is even defendable. Now, let's go into it argument by argument. Argument in favor number one. The assertion of the unattainability of knowledge for or against the existence of gods is sometimes seen as an indication that atheism requires a leap of faith. This has been a discussion. This is considered a weak argument, but you and I have run into both sides of the aisle, these kind of people. This person is an atheist who denounces evangelical Christians, yet preaches atheism to everybody he meets. So he has to just make sure you know. And there are, to be fair, there's other folks too. Well, their argument against is quite extensive. Some atheists have doubted the very need for the term atheism and claim atheism is a term that should not even exist. We do not have words for people who doubt that Elvis is still alive. One of those is, he's sort of the premier or prima donna atheist, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he has said those exact words almost. It's odd the word atheist even exists. I don't play golf. Is there a word for non-golf players? Do they gather and strategize? I can't do that. I can't gather around and talk about how much everybody in the room doesn't believe in God. And to continue this argument against, atheists say we do not have words for people who doubt that aliens have traversed the galaxy only to molest ranchers and their cattle. Oh, really? We don't have a word. I agree with Skeptic Dog. Someone who questions the veracity of your claims, they're a skeptic. And atheists call themselves free thinker, critical thinker, skeptic. They apply these labels to themselves, then claim there's no word for it. That is disingenuous to say the least. Here's a meme, I'm a free thinker and just being my crazy self. I don't follow the rules and I like to think outside the box. Accept me. Okay? Let's move on to the second argument. Argument in favor number two. The French Revolution, noted for its unprecedented atheism, witnessed the first major political movement in history to advocate for the supremacy of human reason. Oh, so you're an atheist, and I'm the one shoving my beliefs down your throat. Well, the argument against, the atheists claim they have no formal dogma, no national organization. And again, let's go back to Neil here. Look at his last sentence. I can't gather around and talk about how much everybody in the room doesn't believe in God. Maybe that's because he doesn't live in San Diego. Because in San Diego, they have an atheist megachurch. He could go there. There's a ton of people gathered around talking how much God doesn't exist. Or he could even go online. If he doesn't want to move to San Diego, he'd go to sandiegocor.org and, or sit around and gather around with these folks. Apparently, he doesn't know where to go. So, the argument in favor number three, the atheist, according to the Oxford Dictionary of Philosophy. Now, either the lack of belief that there exists a God or the belief that there exists none. Sometimes thought itself to be more dogmatic than agnosticism. Okay? What if I told you that atheism is no longer the belief of no God, but it's the religion of not believing in religion? So the atheists say, hey, atheism is not a belief. You ever followed behind a truck carrying debris, rocks, stuff, and it says, warning, stay back 200 feet? We are not responsible for broken windshields. What the atheists are doing, it's called a legal doctrine of self-proclaimed immunity. Atheists say they are immune from being defined by non-atheists. They proclaim themselves and say, nope, atheism is not a belief. Well, guess what? That doesn't work. The truck you're following behind, a piece of debris falls off and hits your windshield and breaks it. They are responsible no matter how loudly they proclaim they aren't. No matter how loudly they proclaim they are not preaching, they are preaching. So the argument against the atheists claim they have no formal belief, but an anti-belief. They claim that anti-belief is not belief. Atheists claim that rejecting a claim is not a claim in itself, such as collecting stamps is not a hobby. So let's go to an atheist meme. They created this, and it says atheism is a religion like not collecting stamps is a hobby. Now I need to read this book about not collecting stamps before I go to a rally to protest stamp collectors. Just shot himself right in the foot if this was a formal debate. Why? Well, atheism, these people say atheism is a religion like bald is a hair color. Not the correct analogy. Atheism is not a hobby, like not collecting stamps. Fighting against the collecting of stamps is a hobby. Checkmate, atheists. You're actively doing something against something else. You're not just sitting on a couch not collecting stamps. You're out at rallies trying to stop people from collecting stamps. Figuratively. But here's what the militant atheist will scream at you. I reject your claim. Because they don't want you defining them. They want to define themselves. Well, argument in favor number 4 says the atheist defines themselves as free or critical thinkers and skeptics. They push an agenda to rid the world of religion, taking an activist position to eradicate religion. So you're an atheist. Pray. Tell us why you talk so much about God all the time. Okay, and here's another one of those prima donnas of atheism. Richard Dawkins, he studied biology. Therefore, of course, he's an expert and can write on books against religion and theology. Okay, well, what if I told you, Richard Dawkins, that you can be an atheist and not bash religion? I know. It's a radical concept with some, but you can actually do that. Here's one. Every one of us, in the cosmic perspective, precious. If a human disagrees with you, let him live. In 100 billion galaxies, you will not find another. Carl Sagan. Now, Carl Sagan was more of an agnostic than an atheist, and he sure wasn't militant. Okay, so argument against. Again, the atheists claim they have no formal rallies or organizations. Really? Okay. Darn news cameras? Okay, now, Christopher Hitchens, one of the premier, until his demise. Our belief is not a belief. Our principles are not of faith. We do not rely solely upon science and reason because these are necessary rather than sufficient factors, but we distrust anything that contradicts science or outrages reason. He lost in a debate to Lane, I think it was. Now, just because you say it with conviction on social media doesn't make it true. The most important thing, Christopher Hitchens, If it isn't a belief, why did you say our belief is not a belief? If this were a formal debate, he's already lost. Because if we were in a formal debate about whether atheism is a belief or not, boom, he just said it was a belief. We're done. Remember? Self-proclaimed immunity. Well, you can't claim immunity and then use the word to define yourself. You know, ding fries are done. Well, my thoughts. Why do famous atheist leaders think they are so much better than anyone else? Do religious examples besides the, Westboro Church exist that ascribe to that line of thinking? The Pope, the leader of the LDS Church, other leaders, do they? Well, everybody loves him. Aaron Ra on atheists. Atheists don't want religions to have exemptions under the law, and why should we? Now, you can take that apart and say, is he calling atheism a religion as well? Because, well, anyway, it's not our demographic. It's not our demographic that has the most divorce, most chemical dependency, domestic violence, criminal convictions, or even abortion. Keep that in mind. This is what he's spewing. The only thing we might have of are more diplomas. Braggadocious. That's a kind word because he's a pompous. Now, my reply to Aaron, hey, Ron, or whatever it is, what if I told you you can be an atheist and not bash religion? Well, look here. Organized religion is like organized crime. It preys on people's weaknesses, generates huge profits for its operators, and it is almost impossible to eradicate. Mike Herman. And they will say to you, if you are religious, if your religion requires that you hate someone, you need a new religion. I would tend to agree with that. But look at Mr. Sam Harris, the voice of atheism today. Some beliefs are so dangerous, it may be ethical to kill people for believing them. Now, this is from his book. I'm not telling anybody anything new. He's the one that wrote it. Might there not be a connection between the attempt to eradicate religion and the loss of freedom? It is unlikely that Mao and Mao Zedong, to you younger folk, who launched his assault on the people and culture of Tibet with the slogan, "Religion is poison," would have agreed that his atheist worldview had no bearing on his policies. My thoughts kind of says it all. That is Stalin, for you folks that don't know that. Atheism made me what I am today, and it did. A killer of millions. Now, some men, under the notion of weeding out prejudices, eradicate virtue, honesty, and religion. Truer words. Well, let's look what Carl Sagan had to say. The cure for fallacious argument is a better argument, not the suppression of ideas. But of course, like I said, he was agnostic. He wasn't really atheist. So here we go back to Richard Dawkins, who claims to debate everyone but runs from William Lane Craig. Yeah, it was William Lane Craig that just destroyed Hitchens. And of course, Dawkins saw that, and he won't debate him. He's frightened to death. Now, the atheist, godless atheist, threatens Christian civilization. Why do we think that? Why do people have that idea that there's no morality and there's just this attack? Let me leave you with 3 examples. Jeffrey Dahmer on atheist morality. If a person doesn't think there is a God to be accountable to, then what's the point of trying to modify your behavior to keep it within acceptable ranges? That's how I thought anyway, Jeffrey Dahmer. But to continue what he said after that little bit, he said, to continue, I always believed the theory of evolution as true, that we all just came from slime, when we died, you know, that was it. There is nothing. So that's why he justified everything he did. Richard Dawkins, recently, a couple years ago, he accused Catholic priests of being pedophiles, then turned right around and said, and he did say it, there's nothing wrong with a little pedophilia. Well, he said mild pedophilia. You know, it just boggles the mind. Okay, and of course, we're back again to example number 3, the most precious one of all, the voice of atheism today, Sam Harris, saying that people should be killed for what they believe. Okay, well, thank you for watching, and don't be fooled by the slick presentations of the atheists or anybody else, really. I mean, this isn't slick. This is just so mediocre, it's not even funny. Please, though, like and subscribe, and spread the word. Keep the truth flowing. Thank you. This is Mark, and this has been Productions MJC.